Hey guys, today I'm going to make a book nook based on a photo a friend of mine took. She's based in the Netherlands and she took this photo in Germany. Her Instagram is Seen By Me Photography and I'll link it in the description. I love how when you look at the photo it looks like all the doors and windows continue repeating themselves down the hallway. So I thought I could make a book nook using the infinity mirror effect to make an illusion that it continues forever. The place is an old sanatorium and it was used all throughout the 20th century. It was taken over by the German Air Force in World War II and seems to have a lot of history. The first big challenge was how to make the ceilings. They were curved and intricate and I wanted to make them pretty exact. I'll show you more in a little bit, but basically I took a large PVC pipe and cut it in such a way that I could glue them together in this configuration. And then I used plaster of Paris, as you saw, sanded it, and then used some joint compound to make it even smoother. Then I primed it with gesso before putting the first layer of paint on. And after that, used the liquid latex technique to make the paint peeling effect. I've covered this in other videos, but I'll also talk a little more about it later in this one. So to make this, my dad came up with the idea of taking the PVC pipe, cutting it in half, and then cutting 45-degree angles so that they can fit together. This is the backside, and you can see a little bit better how they came together. That ceiling piece is going to rest on these pieces that I'm making here. These pieces of mat board are going to go over the whole thing to cover up the gaps. So after this first layer of paint, I'm using that same technique, stippling on some liquid latex rubber, and then putting on the second layer of paint, and once that dries, rubbing it off to get that peeling paint effect. I do have the liquid latex that I used linked in the description, as well as a lot of other things that I commonly used. These are affiliate links, so they'll just help me out if you use them. But any liquid latex rubber should work fine. These pieces of mat board are going to cover the rest of the walls. Again, I'm putting one layer of paint, liquid latex, and the second layer of paint to peel it off. I loved the nice pastel colors in this place, and I tried to recreate them as best as I could. This is part of the window that I 3D modeled and printed. I'm just gluing it together here. I'm priming it this red-brown color so that I can do a paint cracking effect on top and so you can see more of a like rust color underneath. And I'm doing the same for the window panes. To do the paint cracking, I'm just using basic Elmer's glue technique, just spreading some Elmer's glue, normal white school glue, and then immediately spraying the next layer of paint right over it. You can do this with a brush, but it's much easier with an airbrush so that you don't get any brush strokes or disturb the glue underneath any. Then I just glue this bottom piece on. I'm using the same paint peeling technique here so it'll blend into the wall. For the window glass, I'm using the microscope slide covers again and breaking them a little bit. This piece of mat board is going to be for the wall around the door on the other side. I 3D printed this door frame and the door. The door had some dark brown painted trim, so I'm doing that now with a fine brush, and I wanted to mask off the edges just in case. Then to dirty up the door a little bit, I'm stippling a wash on and sponging up the excess. To glue the ceiling piece onto the walls, I'm using a 2-part epoxy so I know it'll be nice and strong. I should have gone outside to do this, however. I forgot how strong this stuff smelled. Then I'm using hot glue to glue the windows in. Before I glued the other side on, I wanted to dirty everything up, so I'm using ground up pastels and pigment powders. I usually go over everything and then fix the pigments in place with diluted alcohol or matte varnish. But then I'll come back with some powders again because it just leaves a little more dusty effect when you don't fix them. And now I'm gluing these trim pieces on. To hide all the rest of the little gaps, I mixed some paint with modeling paste and I'm just spreading them into the cracks. I also stippled it with this brush to get a little more of that texture. I 3D printed this radiator for under the window and I'm just dirtying it up with some ground up pastels and I'll glue it to the wall. For the large light fixture hanging from the ceiling, I 3D printed this part and drilled a small hole for the piping before I primed it. I painted the top black and then dirtied up the rest of it with a wash and a sponge. This is a small piece of metal piping from a hobby store. Now for the floor. I wanted to keep things pretty simple, so I painted it gray, and now I'm drawing these white lines with a white pen. I'm not sure these will even be visible to be honest, but I wanted to create the illusion of cement tile. Now I'm adding layers of white ink from an airbrush just to lighten different areas to make it look varied. And now I'm adding the mirror to the back wall. To lay down the tile grout for dust and dirt, I'm starting with just some Mod Podge on the floor. Now I'm spreading the tile grout around and I'm noticing that it's clumping up a little bit, so I go in with a makeup brush and just break it up and move it around to make it look more natural. Now I'm just adding little bits of dirt to add a different color and sealing it with some watered down glue. These pieces are going to be for the front of the diorama outside of the mirrors, and so I'm doing the same paint peeling technique here. After this, I'm going to glue the main part to the base and then add the second mirror. The second mirror is a two-way mirror. The way these mirrors work is if there's light on one side, you'll be able to see through it, but if there's light on the side you are, it'll look like a mirror. It's kind of like a privacy mirror. So by looking through the first mirror, the second mirror bounces all the reflections back and forth inside the two mirrors, and that's what creates this infinity effect. If you try this, I do recommend getting the thicker of the sizes for the two-way mirror. The one I got was so flimsy, it warped the illusion very easily. Both of these mirrors were acrylic, and that was on purpose because these tend to be more reflective than the glass ones and less expensive. So now I'm soldering some light bulb sockets together. I'm not an electrician, so do this at your own risk, but I heat shrink them, made sure all the contacts were safe. I'm using 120 volt LED bulbs for this because I needed them to be nice and bright. I'm also adding a white card behind it, so when you look through the window, you just see white light instead of the wood board. I would definitely check out battery-powered LEDs, as they're much easier to work with and safer. Now after painting it all black and adding pieces in the front, let's see the finished shots. go check out my friend Suzanne's Instagram page that's linked in the description to see amazing photos from Germany and different parts of Europe. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to see my next project. See you next time.